What happens after we die? It's probably the biggest, most universal question there is. And while there are countless beliefs out there, today we're going to explore one incredibly detailed vision of what that journey might look like. You know, this right here is the one certainty we all share. But in this view, it's not an endpoint. It's actually the starting line for the whole journey we're about to map out. So, okay, if death is just the beginning, what happens in that very next moment? When the body stops, what does the soul actually do? Where does it go? To dig into one specific answer, we're drawing from The Soul's Journey After Death, which is a modern work based on a classical Islamic text by a scholar named Ibn al-Qayyim. Our goal here is pretty simple. We're just going to explain the detailed picture that's laid out inside this source. So the first and most crucial point this text makes is that death isn't a full stop. It's not the end of the story. It's presented more as a transition, a move from one state of being to a totally different one. The book describes this really fascinating shift in perception. It suggests that death isn't a fade to black, but an awakening. Suddenly, the dying person starts to see and hear and even interact with a new reality that is completely hidden from those of us who are still alive. And this awakening, this new perception, it leads to a really dramatic moment, the soul's actual departure from the physical body. This is described as a pivotal, universal event. It doesn't matter who the person is. The angel of death is said to arrive and take a seat right at the head of the dying individual, getting ready to escort the soul out of the physical world. And right here, from this exact point, the text lays out two completely different paths. The journey of the soul is not the same for everybody. It diverges, and it diverges dramatically based on the kind of life that person led. So here's where that path splits. For the believer, the soul's exit is described as being super gentle, just flowing out as easily as a drop of water. But for the unbeliever, it's described as a violent, painful process. The soul is literally torn from the body, kind of like a thorny skewer being ripped through a piece of wet wool. And that sharp contrast continues with how the soul is received by the angels. The believing soul gets immediately wrapped in a shroud that smells beautiful, like the sweetest musk. The unbelieving soul, though, is wrapped in this rough, disgusting cloth that gives off a stench described as being worse than any dead body. As the journey moves upward towards the heavens, the believing soul is welcomed and called by its best names, and the gates of heaven swing right open. But for the unbelieving soul, it's the exact opposite. It's met with its worst names, it finds the gates of heaven sealed shut, and it's then cast back down. Now, whether a soul was welcomed or rejected, it now enters the next phase of its journey. Think of it as a state of waiting before the final resurrection. This realm is known in the text as the Barzakh, or the Interspace. You can think of it as a kind of transitional reality. It's a state of being that isn't this world, but it's not the final hereafter either. And it's here that a really critical examination happens. So inside this interspace, there's this pivotal questioning. First, the soul is returned to the body. Then two angels, known in the tradition as Munkar and Nakir, show up. And finally, they pose three fundamental questions. Who is your Lord? What is your religion? And who was the prophet sent to you? And the outcome of this questioning determines everything for the soul until the day of resurrection. The believer is said to answer with total confidence. And as a reward, their grave expands into this beautiful, spacious garden, and a gate is opened to give them a glimpse of their place in paradise. The unbeliever, on the other hand, can't answer, and their grave begins to constrict until their ribs are pressed together, and a gate to the fire is opened to show them their eventual, terrible destination. The text then gets really specific, drawing a direct line between actions in life and consequences in this inner space. The punishment, you could say, fits the crime. People who wrongly took an orphan's property are made to devour hot coals. Slanderers are forced to eat their own flesh. And those who neglected their prayers have their heads repeatedly crushed. So, a pretty natural question comes up from all of this. If these intense events are actually happening, why can't any of us, the living, see or hear or feel any of it? Well, the text tackles this question head-on. This quote from the book offers a pretty direct answer. It's basically saying that both the living and the dead are conscious, but their awareness exists in two completely different realities, operating under different sets of rules that we just can't compare. To help explain this, the book uses an analogy. It points to other beings that are mentioned in the tradition, like jinn and angels, who were believed to exist right here in our world with us, but we can't see or hear them. The state of the dead is presented in a very similar way. It's like another layer of reality, coexisting right alongside ours, but it's just veiled from our five senses. So the vision laid out in this text is really clear. This entire journey, the soul's exit, the questioning, the bliss or the torment, is presented not as some metaphor, but as a literal reality. It's just a reality that's completely veiled from our physical senses. Ultimately, the vision inside the soul's journey after death presents this unbreakable link between the choices we make in this world and the reality of the next. And it leaves us with a final, pretty powerful question to think about. If every single one of our actions truly echoes into a reality beyond our senses, what does that imply for how we choose to live our lives right now?